Welcome to the Future of Surrogacy, the podcast that explores the people, the innovations, and the ideas building the next generation of surrogacy.
You've probably heard of SEO, search engine optimization, but now with AI tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and others changing how people search, there's a new discipline emerging called GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, and it could be the difference between your agency being found or being invisible. To help us understand this shift, we've brought on one of the best in the business. Our guest today is Jenn Mathews. She's led SEO and digital strategy at companies like Nordstrom, GitHub, Groupon, RingCentral, and Smartsheet, helping them boost organic traffic and visibility in highly competitive markets. And today, she's here to help us break down what GEO means, why it matters, and how surrogacy agencies can start preparing now. So with that, welcome to the Future of Surrogacy, Jenn.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, we're very excited. I always like to start these with hopefully a softball question, but I don't think there is a softball question when we're talking about this because this is such a new concept for so many people. So in your most layman's terms possible, can you help us understand the difference between SEO and GEO?
Yeah. So when I teach a workshop on SEO to local businesses that don't understand this stuff, I explain how search engines work. So then we can go from that to how the LLMs work, which is what GEO targets. So when you're searching in Google, you think of a keyword and you're like, okay, I want to find something. So you type in your word and then the search results come up. So what happens is, so Google basically goes to your website, looks at all the content on your website, all of the words on the page, stores it in their cache. So when you go to search something, it basically matches where the word you're searching matches what's in their cache, and then surfaces all of the websites that have that word in it. Now, then there's all these other algorithms that are like decide who gets to be first and second and so on. So, and then that's where SEOs come in, right? We try to make sure that we're matching those algorithms and getting you in the first position. So when it comes to LLMs, they don't work the same way. It's not putting a keyword in and matching the content on a web page. It's a learned language model. So and that's what AI is, right? Artificial intelligence it's trained. So LLMs actually work off of like partnerships with other companies. So news publications, they're trained by humans. They're actually fed information. Wikipedia, Reddit, some of the social media sites. And this is why AI can be inaccurate, right? Because it's using that information through the partnerships. It's not a crawl the website and then return it. It's actually being trained. And there's actual jobs out there that I've seen where LLM companies are hiring people to feed the LLMs with knowledge. Like that's your
About certain categories, like, so okay.
Yeah.
Maybe this is an opportunity for a surrogacy agency
I know, like feed it with your information. Yeah. So work with partnerships. Yeah. So, and that's if you have an informational site for surrogacy that's educating users, work with the LLMs and say, hey, I would like to be some sort of partnership. I know they use like WebMD as a partner. So a lot of the medical, I'm sure that the more information they want to get that's accurate, the better. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you have the surrogacy agency all over your website and that's on the organic side, and then you pay for keywords surrogacy agency and try to outbid other people for the word surrogacy agency, that's how the traditional SEO has worked. But now GEO, it sounds like whatever the LLMs can find, it sounds like it has to be almost partner-backed content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be trained. Yeah. And so it's not just like, okay, if you can't get a partnership with the LLMs and get your information out there, you're not going to show up, right? That's not how it's going to work. Use Reddit. So there's people asking legit questions on sites like Reddit, Quora, WebMD. I'm not familiar with the industry, but I'm sure that there's forums out there where people get information, especially when it comes to surrogacy, because it's so specialized. I'm sure that there's forum sites and stuff out there that these LLMs will start either developing partnerships with or will look at it. They're getting smart enough to where they're called. What I've noticed, if you have a paid account for Copilot when I'm logged into there, it'll actually go to Google and search for me. So when you have a questions, it use those keywords. So you still want to have your SEO in place because it's still for the people who pay. I've noticed when I'm logged out and I'm not paying, it says it can't search the internet for
Good.
me. And if I give it a link, it won't go to that link. So there's your limited access. So think about your users if they're not paying and they're using LLMs to get their questions answered,
Yeah.
then they're probably so the best bet is to feed the sites as much as possible is just go in Reddit, look at forums. I mean, there's a new job for somebody within the organization. Maybe
Right.
that could be the social media person.
So many of these people do have people on staff to manage social media or manage kind of outbound PR or anything like that. And so,
So your PR is going to be big for sure for that, right? Because they do have relationships with media publications. So if you're a big enough agency, you could get in some of the major news sources.
okay, let me ask this then, because it feels a little bit reminiscent of when SEO first came on the scene. Everybody was like, backlinks, get as many backlinks as you can. And if you can get backlinks to like .govs or .edus, that carries more weight. And so with GEO, it
Kind of the same
feels
thing, but it's
reminiscent.
mentions. It's not just
Yeah, okay.
links. Links are harder to get, right?
Yeah.
Much harder to get, but a mention is easier. Not in this day and age, right? A brand mention or a mention of your website and what it can offer.
Get as many mentions as you possibly can in
Just get people talking
public,
about you.
credible forums.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And .govs and EDUs are as important as ever.
And then, so you mentioned it a little bit. So you can have GEO without necessarily having SEO, or are they dependent on each other?
They are dependent on each other. I'm doing some tests right now and trying to not I have a brand new website which I started, which as anyone who's ever done any business, starting a new website is the hardest thing to get to optimize and then like get it in the search results, right? It takes like a year for Google to take it seriously. And so I'm doing some testing on and not optimizing it with the standard traditional SEO stuff. I mean, it's meeting criteria, but I don't have my meta tags on there, right? My titles and descriptions, which is the first thing we do as SEOs, right? And I don't have the keywords in there that I want. Like I didn't do a keyword analysis to see what people are searching and then target, write content on that. It's just a simple website. And that's what most people and businesses do. They launch their website without thinking that stuff. So then I've been testing, can I do geo without SEO and see if I show up. Now, Copilot picks up very quickly. ChatGPT is a little bit harder.
Is there anything you're doing as you're building out your website, like the kind of the equivalent of meta tags, or you just built a simple website and you're focusing on more of those kind of third party mentions?
So the first thing that I was trying to test with a website is test Markdown. I'm trying to say getting too technical. ChatGPT and Copilot output their text in Markdown language, which is a language that technical documents and things like that use that format. It's a .md. You don't have to try to understand it. It's okay. So I built a website completely in that Markdown to see if I speak in their language, if they're going to recognize it faster. That's what it started with. And it wasn't getting really picked up that well. And so it's very simple. It's literally, what does everybody else do? They create one website and then they're like, we're done, right? We're not doing blog posts. And unless an SEO or a social media person says you need to get more content, most people don't do that. So I'm trying to mimic that same thing with this site. So there's a homepage, an about page, a contact page, and then it's a services type business. So then what the services are page. And that's majority of sites.
Okay. And so you're only focusing on kind of those outside mentions. You're not feeding any LLMs information about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And right now, everything is the wild, wild west. We really don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know, right? What I do know is that they use partnerships. They do get their information that way. They don't give us any data, whereas Google, we've had them for so long. They value SEOs. They used to hate us, so they used to hide everything from us. But there's a very controlled relationship with Google now. And so we have keyword data. We can see how often people are searching things. and then we can target that. They give us a Webmaster Tools login. We can see how many times our site's showing up, what position that's showing up in, what keywords, what page. We can see if there's any technical issues to fix it. We don't have that information from the LLMs.
I know whenever we were building out stuff on our websites, we'd always use SEMrush to see what you just said. Like, what are the
Yeah.
keywords? Where people ranking? What's the opportunity score to own that keyword versus the other ones? But those tools don't exist yet for geo.
There are some tools that are trying. There's a tool called Profound, a company that's developing a tool. They're more for enterprise offering. They're quite expensive. There is SpyGPT by a company called spyfu.com, spyfu.com. I love
Yeah.
them. I get laughed at when I go into these big companies that I work for, and they're like, yeah, you really use SpyFu? But I get some good information from them. And then I noticed they have a Spy GPT. So what they're doing is querying. So you can put your brand name in there and then they'll query the LLM. So they'll actually go to ChatGPT, they'll go to Copilot, they'll go to Gemini, they'll go in there and then see if you're mentioned. So you get at least that kind of information. And they'll
Okay.
keep
That's
hitting it
helpful.
and making sure and seeing where you're mentioned. And yeah, but you don't get data on how often you're showing up in mentions, and we might get there
Okay.
someday, but yeah, that's the best you
Well,
can
you
get.
keep talking about someday. I'm curious about your point of view in terms of when do we flip from like SEO being mainstream, which is today, to geo being mainstream? What's your point of view on that?
I can give you a prediction. Think in 5 years, people are gonna start using I don't think search engines will go away completely. I think, Google's headed in a direction where if you ask an obvious question, if you have why, how, when, where in your query, they surface the answer box, right? And so you're getting, their AI overview, they call it, and then they'll give you other stuff. If you search just a regular keyword, like something for sale, the LLM's not gonna come up. So that experience will develop a little bit more and be smarter. It's not gonna go away. I think how we as consumers, as people, if we have questions, we're gonna start going to ChatGPT or the LLMs and ask the questions we need. I think for the surrogacy companies, that might be more relevant. So I would say it's more of a behavior of users. It's not necessarily, and then all the companies will follow suit. So my guess is 5 years, but then it could be faster because look at where we've gone from last year, a year ago to today. It has grown
Yeah.
massively,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's insane. So it may grow fast.
Yeah. I just saw that ChatGPT rolled out instant checkout.
Yeah, I heard something about that they're working on it. They're also working on a search engine. So I have something that competes. All these big companies have something that knocks them out, right? Something's Facebook killed. I worked at classmates.com. I don't know if you've been around that long, but I
Yes, I
worked at
have.
classmates.com and what was it? Yeah, and then Facebook. And I remember being in that office as 2005, 2006, I was there. And there was a gal, an intern that we had who was in college and was like, "You guys need to look at this Facebook website. It's all the rage in the universities." And I remember all the executives are like, "We don't have time for that. We've got to worry about base," right? They were worried that MySpace was killing them. And then boom, Facebook exploded. So there's always something that's going to kill other things. Pinterest came in and started knocking, right? And well, now we have TikTok that's knocking YouTube out, and Google's scrambling to keep YouTube relevant. So there's always something that's going to come in, and whether there's a lot of people saying SEO is dead. I don't think it'll die completely.
What about a lot of the surrogacy agencies, there's so many regulations around if you are doing paid ads, does that affect geo at all? And then my kind of follow-up question to that is there's so many regulations around, for example, you're not allowed to advertise to pregnant women on Google. And so
That
I'm
makes
just
sense.
curious about like, do paid ads affect geo at all? And then How are regulations, or are they not, because it's still kind of wild, wild west with the geo side of the house?
Yeah, the paid ads don't, because they don't look at the advertisements for their information, and there's no form of advertising yet. They're gonna have to monetize at some point, right? Right now, we have a paid version versus a not unpaid. Is that stays that way, then great. They may bring in some form of advertising that you can sponsor searches or queries or whatever. Keep an eye on it and see what happens. But it paid, there's no way to put money into it. I don't know, as far as regulations, there's none. But in the last, has it been 5, maybe 10 years at the most, like mostly the last 5 years are where regulations have really come into place. Our government's catching up to the
Yeah.
internet that started in the 90s.
Yes.
So it may not catch up. You never know.
Yeah. The regulation piece on advertisings, I know, has always been kind of one of the hampers, and we understand why they exist, and of course support,
Yeah.
regulations to protect people that shouldn't, like no predatory practices
Yes.
should be. But it does create another opportunity then for, I think, professionals in the surrogacy side of the house, because if you can get enough traction in some of these third-party credible data sources like the Reddits or other forums, then this is another opportunity for you to be showing up in a tool that more people are starting to use. So
Yeah.
uh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the myth side of the house. Is there a common myth about SEO? Because I know you're so versed in SEO, but a common myth in SEO that you've seen, and then, or that you wish people would forget, or that you're constantly saying, no, that's not true.
Oh yeah. My favorite, it's the hill I'll die on, is there's no such thing as domain authority. None whatsoever.
Well, explain that.
So domain authority came from uh SEO Moz. They came up with this idea. It's a domain authority, which is a score for your whole domain. So your .com and your entire website. And it was based on how many links are coming in, the value of those links, and you get this domain authority score. Google doesn't rank domains, Google ranks pages. And so page rank is what you want to look at. So the individual URL. So it drives me nuts when SEOs, because the tools, it's not just Moz that does it. It's also SEMrush uses it,
Yeah.
Ahrefs uses it. All of the tools like to use that word domain authority. And it's funny because John Mueller at Google will give you some insights as best as he can to the SEO world. And he has several times said there's no such thing as domain authority. The Google ranks pages. And if you notice that when you search for something, if you have 3 pages on your site that talk about the same thing, those 3 pages will show up in different positions because it looks at every page individually. So the links coming to that page. Now, if you have a lot of quality links going like to your homepage, and then
Yeah.
that homepage links out to pages within your site, the value from that page gets passed on. I mean, a percentage is lost, right? Because it goes from that to the other one, but it passes that on. So you want to have good quality links coming to your homepage. But if you have a page of your site that is more important, for example, I used to run conferences, and the company that ran the conferences was called Wapow. Well, nobody cared about the name of the company. It was the name of the conferences. And so my conference landing page, I had 3 of them. They got more traffic than the homepage ever did, more links, more anything, right? And so, and it was funny because this is a long time ago. This is in 2012. But I would give them my site to review, like in conferences, right? I'd have them like, let's review the site and tell me what you think. And they would look at the homepage and they're like, this is crap. There's not much content here. They'd look at the internal linking. There's not much internal links. And I'm like, oh, but nobody cares about that page. And they talk about domain authority too. And I'm like, nobody cares about it. And then I would show them the data that like all this traffic, and I'd have edu links, I'd have .gov links, like all sorts of valuable, because it's a conference. And I had professionals, PhDs and so on, that worked at universities would speak. And so their sites would link to that page. And so I got that link building, and yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and yeah, I mean, back then it proved it. So And don't go be building, a bunch of like 5 pages that all talk about the same thing and think you're gonna dominate the search results. The best thing
Yeah.
to do is to have a main I always say pick like a category and subcategory. So you'd have, especially with blog posts, you'd be like talk about one subject and then have under subjects, but then have those link back to the main subject. And so you have the deeper, as people are searching, they're searching that category or that big topic, but then getting into the weeds of it.
So many surrogacy agencies, it's two-sided. So they have to speak to surrogates and they have to speak to intended parents.
Yeah.
And so their homepage is usually kind of like,
Lit.
here's bit about the agency and our belief system, but then it splits because the processes and the questions and everything are different
Totally
for each
different.
one of the people groups.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so are you saying, so
Well,
when
look
they're
at those
out
2 as landing pages. Look at those as almost like those are your domains, and those you wanna put as your value into them and separately, right? Because 'Cause they're different keywords, they target different audiences for sure.
Okay. And then what about tool set? Surrogacy agencies are typically small to medium-sized businesses. Are there a few kind of go-to, these are the resources that you should be using to do that on the SEO side? And then you've mentioned a couple on the GEO side, but are there tools you would recommend, or is it more so just go out and build content on the GEO side?
Think, I mean, you wanna have for SEO your typical and I'm gonna talk free tools that you don't have to pay for. If you set up a Google Ads account, you don't have to run ads if you don't have the budget for it. Use Google Keyword Planner, and that'll tell you what people are searching and then how often it has your search volume. So that helps you understand your audience, what they're looking for, and then how often they're searching it. And that'll help you hone in. And a lot of times you can get, I like to look at the questions. And then if you're going to do a blog post and build content, do the how, whens, where, why, anything that includes those keywords around surrogacy or whatever your topic is. And then make those blog posts because people are asking those questions. And those are going to be good for your geo. That's going to cross over anyways, right? Because people are going to ask questions in those LLMs. So that's a free tool. The other one is making sure your webmaster tools, so your Bing, because Bing is important. It has Copilot, and Fabrice Canal will tell you he's the head of product, and he's always pushing Bing. It's becoming more and more popular, especially with the development of Copilot. Bing webmaster tools, get that set up.
How do you do that, or what's involved with that?
So if you just search in Bing for Bing Webmaster Tools, you'll get the URL to log in, and it'll take you through the steps of how to get your website verified. So if you go through Google and do Webmaster Tools first, Bing will actually just you log in with that, and you can transfer your data over. So there's a
Really?
Google Webmaster Tools. Actually, I would just go there first because Bing is easier. But you have to get your website verified. So you can either use your domain, your DNS registrar. If you have a WordPress site, it's really easy. If you have a tool like AIO, all-in-one SEO tool, I really like them. Yoast is another one. They're falling a little bit behind on their technology. So I use all-in-one AIO SEO is what the tool is for WordPress. They will take care of it for you. There's also plugins that you can get verified, but they'll just walk you through the process. Super easy.
Okay, so the
Uh,
first step is to get your website verified in all these
get it
various
on it,
so
and
for
then you get access to Webmaster Tools. If you go into Webmaster Tools and then so
okay.
you have access to that data, and it'll tell you like if there's pages that are indexed but not ranking. They'll tell you why. If you can't figure out why this one page you want to rank isn't ranking, you can plug it in, and they'll inspect it for you and tell you what's going on. Yeah, it's really cool. Totally free.
Well, that's amazing. And so for pages that are indexing but they're not ranking, and so the webmaster tools will tell you what's going on, and then you can just have somebody on your team go in and fix it.
Yes. I mean, it doesn't tell you exactly, but you can inspect it and see, was it crawled? If it wasn't crawled, then you got to figure out why. If it was crawled, there's crawling, index, and ranking. So you can have a page index, but it may not rank. And so if there's something important, and that's where an SEO, when you get into that deeper dive, an SEO can help you understand. Yeah.
And when you're talking about an SEO, you're talking about a person like you.
Somebody like me. Yeah. Because that's where you start getting technical. There's a checklist we go through. Is it being linked to? Is there maybe some JavaScript on the page that's slowing it down? Is there enough content? Sometimes they'll soft 404. Is it getting a server error? That's all like, yeah. Phew, like my mother would be like, I don't understand what you're talking about.
Well, I barely understand what you're talking about. So, and so hiring someone like you, what's involved in that? How much does it? I know, I'm sure it's probably like building a house. Do you want to build a mansion? Do you want to build a log cabin?
Yeah.
But it's kind of a typical range that an agency should expect to be
Yeah, I mean, you
spending.
can start anywhere from a freelancer. So if you need something that's not too complicated, there's Fiverr.com or Upwork.com. They have some good SEOs that are freelancers that you basically submit that you have a couple of pages you want looked at, or maybe you want an SEO to just do an audit and just do a check for you. And you can get them at a reasonable rate. My son, who wants to learn SEO, he has a different job now, but he wanted to learn SEO, and I said, "Just go on Upwork and start taking jobs." And, yeah, and he did a lot of freelance stuff, and he was charging like $10, $20 an hour and just doing
Right.
simple little jobs. But then you can find individual consultants, so I do consulting on the side. I'm a little overkill is what I tell small businesses because I charge 150 an hour. There's agencies that'll do it, and they can run anywhere from, I think, like 1,500 to 10,000. I mean, we pay our agencies for big enterprise companies, we pay them 20, 30,000 a month. Yeah.
Right.
So they can really get
Okay.
up there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But for large enterprises, I understand why. And then
Yeah.
how do you know if something's good if you're going to go the Fiverr or Upwork route? How do you know if an SEO
Ask
person
them
is
the domain authority question. Ask them about domain authority, and if they're like, "Oh, yeah, you have to pay attention to it," then, yeah, there's your answer right there.
okay? Good, good advice. There are a few associations, like trade associations that exist in the world of surrogacy, but they aren't notoriously great at putting out content. So they're more like directories. So do those count, or is it more like
You can
style
test.
conversation?
Always test, right? Test and learn. So, yeah, it doesn't hurt to, like, try to get mentioned. Like, if there's a directory, put it in there and see what happens. Try plugging in your information into, the LLMs and see if they eventually pick it up. Wikipedia is one. If you can get mentioned on Wikipedia, that's a good place to be mentioned. They're very hard.
Okay, so the bigger forms, the Wikipedias, the Reddits.
I mean, it's the same as your PR. It's brand awareness, same with social media. The more you get other people to talk about you, then eventually that'll come back to those LLMs and they'll see that you're legit and that you're an authority. You want to be an authority on like an authoritative voice in your subject matter, which is what Google wants to see at the core of it.
Yeah.
That's what LLMs want to look for too.
LLMs looking at things like LinkedIn or Facebook.
I think, well, Copilot does. I did notice in my
Sure.
test, but LinkedIn's owned by Microsoft. Copilot's owned by Microsoft. So it picked up on GitHub stuff really quick. It picked up on LinkedIn. So I actually created a business page, like a fake business page, and then started pushing out content on the business page, announcing like services or whatever else that this business does. And that stuff got picked up super quick in Copilot.
Okay, cool. All right, last question, and we call it the magic wand
Magic
question.
wand. Okay.
If you had a magic wand and you could change anything about SEO or geo, what do you change? And it can be on the people trying to improve theirs, or it can be on the organizations that rank.
I seriously have been trying to do this anyways. Losing battle. It's to stop stop lumping SEOs in with geo. It's a completely different discipline. It's totally different. The audience isn't the same. The people using it, how it works is not the same. We're in a different, it's like I said, it's a wild, wild west. So we're learning. It's not because SEO is very keyword driven. It's very technical. Our algorithms have a checklist as long as you go, it's very linear. Like as long as you meet this checklist. And so it's really easy. The barrier to entry to learn SEO and to be a search engine optimizer for companies is quite easy. You don't have to go to college. There's no college for it. Anyone can get into it as long as they want to learn. They take the time and pay attention. But geo is a completely different beast, totally different. And so it does frustrate me. Adobe does it, right? They're giving the SEO teams taking over geo, and they're like, yeah, we know about AI. And I'm like, oh. The only reason I know anything about it is because I worked at GitHub while Copilot was being developed. So I have that base of knowledge. And at several points in the last several years, I've been like, do I want to retire? Or do I want to learn something new? And here I am. But the more I work with it, they might work with each other, but social media is not SEO. We don't ask SEOs to do social media, right? We don't ask social media people to do PR. So, yeah, companies need to, if I could wave a magic wand and be like, stop asking your SEO, and SEOs need to stop saying they know geo, because they don't.
I know. I mean, I come from the marketing side of the house. And so, I mean, people have been doing this to marketers for ages, because they'll be like, oh, do a really in-depth research and brand positioning assignment. Oh, and then can you create some ads that'll run next week? And you're like, what?
That's not what I
Those
do.
are completely different
I get
people.
asked to
Or
do
like,
paid marketing all the time, and I'm like, I don't know how to do paid ads.
exactly. No, I know. They're such different disciplines. But so
It's like my parents asking me to fix their printer. I can't fix a printer, but I can optimize their website. But you're good at this tech stuff. No, I'm not.
this has been super helpful. If people want to get in touch with you because they do want you to help them, how do they do that?
So SEOgoddess.com is the best way. I mean, if you Google SEO Goddess, I show up everywhere, so you can find me. But yeah, SEO Goddess is my hub. If you need me, there's a way to contact me. There's a link to my Calendly, and you can schedule something there.
I already asked her if she's going to change her name to geogoddess.com.
I did try. I've tried AIgoddess.com, LLMgoddess.com. Yeah, none of them. To get personal, I purchased a 10-acre horse ranch 2 years ago, and I'm trying to phase out of this world. And so I'll do it. I'm going to ride this wave because it helps pay for the horses and the showing and everything I want to do here. But
horses
at some point, when they don't need me, when I'm too old for this world and they don't need me anymore, I'll quietly phase out. So yeah, I don't know if if I get it, I can get it. But yeah.
Well, thank you for being here and spending time to help us.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and if you have any further questions or if you need anything from me, let me know. Happy to.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to The Future of Surrogacy. If you liked today's episode, send it to a friend or a colleague that should hear it. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn to keep up with new episodes and behind-the-scenes updates. And if there's a topic you want us to cover or someone you think we should talk to, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next time.